Everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports with another NBA draft video today, but this one is quite a bit different. In this one, we're going to be covering potential NBA draft night trades. Now, there's a little bit of a disclaimer here. Some of these trades do include draft picks, some of them include players, and a combination of both, which makes this video, I think, really intriguing, really fun to look at, especially now that we have the entire NBA draft order. I think it's easier to project what some teams might do as we get closer and closer to the actual draft night. We are just a little bit less than a month away, which I'm so excited for with all the preparation and coverage on the channel for it. It's almost here, and I'm so excited. If you are as well, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel for more NBA draft content. And this video today was requested by two users on the channel. So Logan and Shade, thank you so much for the request. Really do appreciate it from you guys. And if any of you have any video ideas that you would like to see on the channel, go ahead, comment them right now. I would love to hear what your thoughts are for future content, because I think this is a really fun idea. And again, Logan, Shade, thank you so much for commenting it on one of the community posts. Then video preview here. 5 potential trades or teams to watch for on draft night. We have more than 5 teams, of course. We do have 5 trades, but I want to focus specifically on the teams. Then some pick style trades. There's a couple of those, and then also some player movement involved as well, like I kind of teased in the open a little bit. I'm really excited for this video again, and I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on some potential draft night trades. So as we're going through this video, if you guys get any great ideas for teams or trades to watch out for, go ahead and comment them. You guys can start using the comment section almost like a community as well. Maybe share your own ideas, your own thoughts, because I think it would be awesome if, you know, someone can go in the comment section and see some other ideas that you guys have that maybe I did not come up with myself, because again, there's 30 NBA teams. I don't have all 30 teams included in this video, so very possible you guys are looking at it from a different lens. There is one team that I wanted to include that I just simply didn't, because I'm not sure if they're going to pull the trigger on it quite yet. We'll talk about them in a later video though. Potential trade teams number 1. This one's between the Houston Rockets and the Orlando Magic. And this is one that really comes down to how Orlando values the number 1 pick, because I feel like a lot of people, myself included, do understand that Paolo Banchero is probably the actual best fit right now for the Orlando Magic, just based on the current construction of their roster. I think, and a lot of people agree with me on this, that they need a true lead scorer. And for me, Paolo Banchero is the most NBA ready scorer right now in the class. I think he's going to be able to come in and average over 15 points a game his rookie season, and probably close to 20 to 25 by year 2 or 3 of his NBA career, which is serious bucket getting potential, and I think something that Orlando really badly needs in the front court next to Wendell Carter. So the idea here in this trade is that Orlando feels comfortable enough to trade down to number 3, because they have the feeling that at 2, Oklahoma City would probably take the remainder of whoever's left between Jabari Smith and Chet Holmgren. And the idea here is that Houston becomes enamored with one of these two guys to the point where they want to move up. And Orlando, they had 2 first-round picks last year, took Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner. They have 2 first-round picks next year because of the Vucevic trade as well. And then looking at this deal, they would have 2 picks this year in the first round, which would give them, over the 3-year stretch, 6 first-round picks to work with. I feel good last year about the Franz Wagner selection, and I think Jalen Suggs is going to take a massive step forward in year 2. If they can add picks 3 and 17 here, you add Banchero, who in a lot of classes would have been the 1st or 2nd overall pick anyway. You get him potentially at 3, and then at 17, maybe you come back and find another contributor, and then you go into next year's draft and maybe draft well there as well. And maybe if they're bad again, maybe you're looking at another top 3 to 5 selection. You can add more talent in there, and then Orlando becomes a pretty intriguing team long term. And then the idea here for Houston is Rafael Stone. They badly need a little bit more front court help, in my opinion. And I think either way you look, whether it's Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren, you really couldn't go wrong there if you're Houston. And to only have to give up 17 in addition to 3 to get your guy, I think is pretty good value to move up to the spot you want to go. We've seen a deal like this in the past. Remember when the Celtics moved up with the 76ers, or the Celtics, excuse me, moved down for the 76ers to go get Markelle Fultz. Obviously that Fultz selection did not work out, but I would feel a lot more confident drafting a Chet Holmgren or Jabari Smith over than a guy like Fultz. When Fultz came out, just a little bit of a disclaimer, I did not really believe in him a ton. Obviously, it's funny now because Orlando actually has Fultz on the roster while we're talking about this. But maybe the idea here is, Jonathan Isaac comes back. He hasn't played since the bubble. You also get Markelle Fultz back probably into the starting lineup, I would have to guess. And Orlando takes a different approach rather than just using the number 1 overall pick, but I think there's a pretty good outcome here if Orlando were to do this and still end up with Banchero. Then we move into the second deal here that I have, and it's between the Detroit Pistons and the Portland Trail Blazers. And this is one of my favorites I actually have in today's video. In this deal, the Detroit Pistons receive picks number 57 and also pick number 7. And in return, the Portland Trail Blazers receive not 1, but 2 contributors early. And Jeremy Grant, who of course is the headliner in this deal, he's the big name that Detroit would be having to part with here that Portland would really want. And essentially, they get Killian Hayes, which gives Detroit a second opportunity at pick number 7, because I said it on draft night when it happened. I just don't think pick 7 on Killian Hayes was the right selection. They passed on Tyrese Halliburton for him. And ultimately, Killian Hayes, I think there's a role for him in this league, and I think that's why he fits into Portland, because I think Portland would probably be looking to add a defensive-minded guard next to the combination of Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons, so that maybe you can counter-stagger those 2 minutes a little bit and have Killian Hayes be the other guard with both of them at certain points of the game. And then ultimately, the Blazers are trying to win, which is a very tough task to do. When you're using a lottery pick, a lot of the time players get drafted based on potential. And pick 7, are you going to be able to find someone that helps swing the needle a lot? Does it move the needle enough for you to become a contender again out in the West with a healthy Damian Lillard? And my thought is probably not. So Jeremy Grant gives you a better chance there, and growing Killian Hayes, who's still relatively young, gives you a little bit of return on investment there, giving up pick number 7 in that deal. And for me with the Pistons, you have pick number 5 already. Now you have 2 picks in the top 7. You're probably going to be able to draft a guard who would replace Killian Hayes in the starting lineup anyway at pick number 5, whether that's Shaedon Sharpe or Jaden Ivey. Ultimately, I think both of those guys are going to end up being better than Killian Hayes, so I would prefer that route anyway for them. And then you, in addition to that, have number 7 now, or maybe you find another guard or wing combo in Benedict Mathurin. Maybe if a guy like Keegan Murray somehow slides to you at 7, then that would be worth taking for Detroit. Otherwise, maybe that's where Jalen Duren goes to the Pistons and you're able to find a center and guard in this class. Of course, it comes at the cost of Jeremy Grant. But ultimately, I think the long-term timeline here for Detroit is way more important than keeping Jeremy Grant, who is heading into the last year of his deal. They could work out a contract extension with him, but ultimately, I think this is a win-win for both sides. Detroit adds some young talent via the draft, and in turn, Portland gets the key contributors they're looking for to try and make a playoff push again with Damian Lillard on their roster. Then we move into trade number 3, and this is another one that I think is a really well-rounded trade for both sides, and there's a lot of moving pieces in this one, and this is a deal that I already know was getting talked about at the trade deadline. There was a lot of rumors of Jakob Poeltl heading to Charlotte, and I think ultimately it does happen this offseason for plenty of reasons. First of all, Charlotte, a team that has now lost twice in a row in the play-in tournament in embarrassing fashion, they want to take a step forward with LaMelo Ball. They want to make the playoffs. And the best way to do that is add a nice rim-protecting center who fits around your other pieces. And I think Jakob Poeltl, who's only 26 years old, is actually a phenomenal addition here for Charlotte to kind of fit the bill with what you're trying to add. And you, in addition to Jakob Poeltl, also receive picks number 20 and 25. And I think Mitch Kupchak's a phenomenal GM. He does a really great job evaluating talent. I think he would find consistent contributing players at those spots. He's done a really great job drafting in the past. Of course, last year took Bouknight and Kai Jones, who I think both are ready to take expanded roles going into next season. And then San Antonio, what's the selling point here for you getting Jakob Poeltl off your books? And in turn, you bring in pick 13, pick 15 as well. So 2 near lottery level selections. Of course, 13 is in the lottery, 15 not quite, but it's the first pick outside the lottery. And then you also get PJ Washington, who is another former first round pick. He's almost 24 years old. So for Charlotte, I know it feels bad giving up PJ Washington. You're only getting about 2 years older here with a player who's much better in Jakob Poeltl. But the idea here for San Antonio is PJ Washington would fit their roster. And by the way, San Antonio already has pick 9. So now they have 3 picks in the top 15. It gives them more flexibility if they want to move up even higher potentially, if they want to lock in a guy like Jalen Duren. Or, ultimately, if they sit at 9, 13, 15, they could end up with some type of draft haul, including guys like Mark Williams, Jeremy Sohan. They could also bring in a guy like Ochai Agbaji, Malachi Branham. There's a lot of really good options out here for San Antonio that they could add 3 serious contributors really quickly, and it still fits the timeline of DeJounte Murray, who keeps getting better year in, year out. Devin Vassell, I think, is ready for another step forward. And you kind of reset your timeline with a little bit of cheaper contracts now on rookie deals with picks 9, 13, and 15, but it sets you up really, really well long-term at the expense of, yes, Jakob Poeltl, but you're going to get a better return at 13 and 15 than you do at 20 and 25, and you'll also get PJ Washington back in. It's a good way to reset your book a little bit and still continue to build this team. Center is still a position of need for San Antonio in the backup role, but ultimately here, if they go this route, maybe they take Mark Williams at 9, who measured in at 7'2", by the way, and then you go building up other positions, or maybe even drafting another center and a guy like Walker Kessler potentially at like 15, and you really try and build up your roster via the draft there in San Antonio. I do actually really like this deal for both sides. Charlotte gets the rim protector they need, and San Antonio would be able to infuse a lot of really good young talent with 3 picks in the top 15. Potential trade teams number 4, and this is actually a 3-team deal, which is really exciting and one that I actually do like as well. And I think it kind of fits a lot of the team's long-term needs. When you look at the Houston Rockets here, they're going to be giving up Christian Wood, Eric Gordon, and John Wall. Gordon and Wall head out to Los Angeles to play for the Los Angeles Lakers, as Rob Pelinka and the Lakers are tasked with really reshaping this roster to fit around LeBron and Anthony Davis. And I think simply John Wall is a little bit of a better fit than Russell Westbrook, even though I think Westbrook's the better player between the two of them just at this point in their careers. I think Wall fits better. And you also get Eric Gordon, who's going to be comfortable coming off the bench if you ask him to, or you could be comfortable starting him. And then in turn, with Christian Wood also going out the door to Minnesota, which badly fills in the need for a little bit more front court help there. In Minnesota, a little bit more size. Wood can step out behind the 3-point line as well. I think Wood's a sneaky good acquisition here for Minnesota in this deal, and Houston gives up their 3 main trade asset pieces, including getting off of John Wall, which I think is a luxury here for them. And you bring back another expiring in Russell Westbrook. In addition to Westbrook, though, here's what the Rockets get. They get picks 40 and 48, which gives you a little bit more draft night flexibility. You get Malik Beasley from the Minnesota Timberwolves, who makes a ton of 3-point shots. A ton of his looks do come from 3. He's fairly one-dimensional that way offensively, but maybe there's a later trade where you could flip him to a team as well. I also did consider him going to Los Angeles instead of Eric Gordon. I think maybe that's a potential outcome still at this point as well, but ultimately, getting Malik Beasley, I don't think is terrible here for Houston because I think you could reroute him at a later time. You also get Talen Horton-Tucker, who's really the big piece you're getting back from Los Angeles. And I know a lot of people just paused for a second and said, wait, a big piece? Talen Horton-Tucker? I know he had a really tough season, but let's look at the Lakers. That whole situation was a mess. THT is still very young. He's still got all the length, size, and everything that got everyone excited about him. The issue is he just wasn't ready for as big of a role as they put him in what became a really messy situation. Think about Houston for a second and THT's fit there. You already have 2 dominant guards, and by dominant, I mean ball dominant, with Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. And I think THT could be a nice counterfeit with them. You have someone who in Alperen Şengün can play make out of the post a little bit. You add a dynamic cutter and a good defensive player, which, by the way, Houston terribly needs. They gave up 119 points a game this past season, so they really, really do need to get better on the defensive side of the ball. Talen Horton-Tucker is good on that end of the floor. I think there's still room for him to improve on both ends of the floor, though. And ultimately here, there's really no risk here for Houston. Giving up Eric Gordon, who's in his 30s, that shouldn't be a concerning factor for Houston's long-term outlook. Giving up John Wall, not a long-term concern. He's expiring. So is Russell Westbrook, so you don't hurt your cap table at all there. Then you look at getting in Malik Beasley for Christian Wood. You add 2 second-round picks to that. That's about Christian Wood's value. And ultimately, I think, Rockets fans are probably at a point where they are fine with trading Christian Wood. And I think at this point, it basically feels like you almost robbed away Talen Horton-Tucker just because the Lakers are in a situation where they feel like they need to try and optimize their potential to win now. And they make a move for Eric Gordon and John Wall, who are both aging veterans. I feel like this is a huge win for the Rockets. I feel like this is a decent win for the Timberwolves. And ultimately, I don't think this is a win for the Lakers. I really do not. But I understand why they would be aggressive in making a move styled like this, because they want to try and win. When you have LeBron and Anthony Davis, your goal is to win championships and not really care about the long-term future. That's gotten some teams that LeBron James has played for in the past in trouble, and probably would get the Lakers in trouble again here. But ultimately, most of their chips are already in. They're not going to part with that first-round pick down the road, though. I just don't see them doing that. So unfortunately, Houston could not pull that away in this deal. But Talen Horton-Tucker is really the free prize they get for making this move. And then the final one here, potential trade teams number 5. And this is another one I really, really like. We have the Atlanta Hawks and Utah Jazz here. And the Atlanta Hawks receive Rudy Gobert, which means a big pay increase for the center position, going from Clint Capella to Rudy Gobert. But you do get a lot better and you get a lot more healthy. Capella has struggled to stay on the court consistently. Onyeka Okongwu's taken steps forward. But ultimately, Rudy Gobert is a multi-time Defensive Player of the Year, multi-time All-NBA first-team defense. And when you look at Gobert, he simply is just way better than a guy like Clint Capella. And Atlanta, you pair him with Trae Young, and you have a really intriguing lob duo threat here, with obviously the combination between those two in the pick and roll game. Now, the one thing here that I think Atlanta loses in a little bit is Gobert's hands are not that good. So there's going to be certain passes that Trae Young fits into a tight window, and simply Rudy Gobert just does not catch the ball, which sounds a little silly to talk about for a professional athlete, but it's just the reality with Gobert. And what does Utah get then for making this deal? It's definitely a tough one here for the Utah Jazz, because you are moving off of Gobert. And you guys all know I feel really, really strongly about how good Gobert is as an overall player. And I think, ultimately, if he was on a different team, he'd get a little bit more love. But what you get here is you get Capella back, so you still fill your center minutes role. I think that Capella is a solid center in today's league. Kevin Huerter as well, so you get another wing-type player who probably doesn't fix the issues there in Utah. You also get pick 16, which we've seen Danny Ainge in the past make a ton of moves for draft picks. And what you do here in this deal is open up your windows for more trades, whether that means Bogdanovich out the door, or Jordan Clarkson out the door, or you see maybe a Royce O'Neal trade. You see a bunch of different options here, maybe a Mike Conley trade. And if you have to include pick 16 and a guy like Kevin Huerter into some of those talks, maybe that's what you do. This is to try and reload your roster around Donovan Mitchell. If you feel like you can't get further than the first or second round with Donovan Mitchell at this point, you need to find ways to improve this roster to the point where you can. And if it means you have to trade Gobert to get some other ancillary pieces that let you make other moves, maybe that's the way Danny Ainge wants to build this thing. Again, I think Atlanta wins this deal. I really do like this a lot for Atlanta, but I understand the idea here for Utah, where maybe they go into the trade marketplace and they make other moves, and you look at a completely refined roster with more wing defensive talent and still a decent rim protecting center in Capella. And that might just be the formula that Utah needs to move the needle and become a better playoff team, which would be obviously the end goal here for Danny Ainge, for Donovan Mitchell, and for the Utah Jazz. Hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. This was a lot of fun to record. I really did enjoy making this video. It did take a lot of time, putting in all the work, thinking of all the potential trades, and then ultimately limiting down to the 5 that I think were the best for the video. Comment your trade ideas down below in the comment section. Again, check out the comment section, kind of like a community. Leave a like on the video if you did enjoy today's video. Again, a lot of hard work goes into it. And then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more of my NBA content. Again, a ton of NBA draft content on the channel and a lot of other NBA content as well. So hopefully you have been enjoying everything we've been posting here at Utility Sports. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.